Hello. Welcome to Reality Stories, where stories do come alive. Please subscribe and share with friends. Now relax and enjoy the story. The sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon when Nathan Blake stepped off the rusted bus and into the dust-choked air of Nduri village. The road behind him was nothing more than a memory of concrete. Ahead, mud huts dotted the red earth. Children ran barefoot with homemade toys, and the scent of roasted maize and smoke lingered in the air. A heavy silence settled over the place, broken only by the occasional bark of a dog or whisper of wind. Nathan adjusted his canvas bag, feeling the hard edge of his camera and voice recorder inside. He pulled out a folded piece of paper, scribbled notes from an anonymous tip. They vanish in silence. 5 this year. Nduri holds the truth. Asked about the girl who speaks in dreams. His boots crunched over gravel as he made his way toward the village square. Eyes followed him, wary, curious, suspicious. Evening. He greeted a group of elders seated under a baobab tree. They didn't reply. Journalists. From the city, he added, forcing a smile. I'm here to write about local history. Still no answer. One of the men slowly turned away. Nathan felt a chill, not from the breeze, but from something older, heavier. He walked on. By a small shop, a woman in a faded blue wrapper gave him a sharp glance. Her voice was low, her accent thick. You shouldn't be here, city man. Nathan stopped. Why not? The ground here remembers what the city forgets. You dig too deep, it might dig back. Before he could respond, she vanished into the shadows of her stall. He continued through the village, past silent homes and flickering lanterns, until he reached the well. A small girl sat beside it, humming. Nathan knelt beside her. Hi, what's your name? She didn't answer, just kept humming a tune both haunting and familiar. Have you heard about children disappearing? Still no response. Then, without turning her head, the girl whispered. She told me not to speak. She watches in the trees. Nathan froze. Who? The girl pointed to the forest edge beyond the village. Thick, ancient trees stood like quiet sentinels. They say she died, but she lives. In dreams. Her name is Grace. Nathan's recorder clicked on without him noticing. Grace, he echoed. The girl turned to him suddenly, her eyes cloudy, as if something ancient looked through them. She sees what you don't. She knows you came. You'll meet her tonight. Then she stood and ran, vanishing between the huts. Nathan slowly looked toward the forest. The wind rustled the leaves. For a brief second, he thought he saw a figure, long dress, long braids, standing perfectly still. Then gone. He didn't sleep that night. Nathan woke to shouting. He sprang up from the mat he borrowed in the local tavern. The sound of angry voices echoed outside. Grabbing his bag, he slipped out the back. From behind a stack of clay pots, he watched 3 village guards, bare-chested, with machetes strapped to their backs. Speaking to the tavern owner. Where is he? One barked. The owner shrugged. He left early. Liar. We know he asked about the girl. Nathan's pulse quickened. His instincts kicked in. He sprinted toward the edge of the forest, ducking low, zigzagging between huts. The guard spotted him. Hey! Stop! He bolted into the trees. Branches slapped his arms. Roots snagged at his boots. But he kept going, deeper and deeper into the forest. The village sounds faded behind him, replaced by bird song and the whisper of leaves. Then silence. Too quiet. Nathan slowed, chest heaving. The canopy above darkened everything. He could barely see 10 feet ahead. Snap. He turned. A figure moved behind a tree. Another step, closer. Nathan raised his recorder like a weapon, voice shaky. I'm not here to hurt anyone. A stick cracked behind him. He turned and suddenly everything went black. When he came to, it was night. Moonlight bathed the forest in silver. He was lying on soft moss, a ring of stones around him. A faint scent of herbs hung in the air. A woman sat nearby. She was barefoot, wearing a flowing white dress. Her skin glowed in the moonlight, and her long braided hair was decorated with cowries. She sat still, almost too still, like part of the forest itself. You dream loudly, she said. Her voice was soft. Calm. but her eyes were ancient. Nathan sat up slowly. Grace. She nodded. That is one of my names. People say you're dead. She smiled faintly. The dead are quieter than me. Nathan rubbed his temples. What's going on here? Kids are missing. Everyone's scared. And they think it has something to do with you. Grace stood and walked slowly to a nearby tree, her fingers brushing its bark. The children were taken by men who want power, but they do not understand the power they try to steal. Power? Nathan asked. There's a reason your city forgets our ways, she continued. The soil remembers pain, and if you hurt it long enough, it remembers your name. He blinked. I don't understand. Why me? Why was I followed? Grace turned to him. Because I saw you, before you came, in a dream. Nathan's breath caught. In the vision, she said, walking closer, you and I stood together before a burning throne. The land cracked. The sky bled fire. You held the truth in your hands, and I held the choice. She knelt before him. You are not just a journalist. You are a thread in the weave. Nathan frowned. I'm just a guy trying to expose corruption. No, her gaze held his. You are the one who changes it. A rustle in the trees interrupted them. Grace looked up sharply. They followed you. Nathan stood. We need to get out of here. No, she said calmly. We need to go deeper. She took his hand and led him through a hidden path. The trees seemed to open for her. Vines moved. Roots retracted. Nathan stumbled along behind her, half believing, half afraid. They reached a small hut made of woven vines and bone. Grace pushed aside the curtain. Inside was a mural, painted in red and black. It showed two figures, one with fire in his hand, the other with stars in her eyes. Beneath them, a broken kingdom. Grace traced the painting. This is what they fear. The prophecy. Nathan stared at it. This is us. Yes, the both of us, the elder said. One sees. One acts. If we meet, the old powers return. The kingdom either heals or burns. He turned to her. So you're a seer? I'm more than that. I am the memory of my people. And I'm the question, she whispered. The one who makes a choice. A sound echoed behind them. Machetes clinking. Grace looked him in the eye. You can still run. Go back to your city. Pretend this never happened. Nathan shook his head. No. If I run, more kids disappear. More lies. More silence. I'm staying. A small smile touched her lips. Then it begins, she said. The fire crackled in the center of the hut, throwing soft shadows across the walls. Nathan sat cross-legged on a mat made of woven reeds, watching Grace as she dropped herbs into the flames. The smoke curled upward like a snake, filling the space with a sweet, earthy scent. You said we're part of a prophecy, Nathan began. Tell me everything. Grace didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into a carved wooden box and pulled out a scroll made of animal skin. She unrolled it gently, revealing an ancient painting. Two figures, one with fire behind him, the other surrounded by stars. This was painted over 100 years ago, she said, passed down by the seers of my tribe. We call it the fate of two. Nathan leaned in. It says that every few generations, when the balance of the land is threatened, two souls will rise. One will see the truth. One will act on it. He looked at her, confused. And that's us. Yes, she said simply. I was born with the sight. I see things in dreams, visions of what might happen. I've seen this moment, Nathan. You and I, standing at the center of the storm. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. Why me? I'm not a prophet. I'm just a journalist. Grace smiled softly. That's exactly why. You don't believe in stories. You believe in facts. Action. You are the fire. Nathan sat back, thinking. So, what do we do? We change the path, Grace said, her tone turning serious. But we have to be together. If you go alone, the future breaks. If I go alone, the truth is buried. Only together can we rewrite what's coming. Nathan stood and began pacing. So what exactly is coming? Grace stood, her eyes meeting his. War, greed, a city on fire, children used as tools, the land screaming. He swallowed hard. And Victor Kane? Her voice dropped. He's at the center of it. Nathan's jaw tightened. Then I need to go back. Get proof. Expose him. Grace stepped forward, placing her hand gently on his chest. You'll be watched. The second you step out of this forest, eyes will be on you. He nodded. I can handle that. But you must promise me one thing, she said. What? Don't lose faith in the connection. If they separate us, the prophecy fails. He nodded slowly. You have my word. Grace leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper. Then go. But remember, what you carry is not just information, it's destiny. Nathan turned to leave. Behind him, Grace closed her eyes and whispered to flames. The capital city, Doma, was loud, restless, and blindingly bright. Nathan stepped off the train, the hum of traffic and the buzz of markets instantly replacing the quiet of Nduri. The scent of hot oil and car fumes filled the air. But Nathan had only one thing on his mind, exposing Victor Kane. He slipped through the crowd, cap pulled low, heading straight to his sister's apartment on the 12th floor of an old concrete building in the city's tech district. Sarah opened the door before he could knock. Nate! Hey! She pulled him into a tight hug. You look like hell. I've been in hell, he said. I found her. Sarah blinked. The girl, Grace. She's real. She's alive. And there's more. A lot more. He stepped inside, pulling his bag off his shoulder. The apartment was cluttered with computer parts, books, half-empty coffee cups, and a digital wall board covered with news articles, satellite images, and maps of rural Zariba. Nathan pulled out his recorder and hit play. Grace's voice filled the room. The children were taken by men who want power, but they do not understand the power they try to steal. Sarah listened, frowning. She sounds like something out of legend. She's real, Nathan said, and she's not crazy. She showed me things. Told me about a prophecy. She's connected to all this. Kane, the disappearances, the land. Sarah sat down at her desk and started typing rapidly. You said Kane is behind it? Nathan nodded. He's planning something. Big. We need to find out what. Give me 10 minutes, she said. Nathan paced as Sarah worked. The glow of her screens reflected in her glasses. Then she stopped, got something. She turned the screen to face him. A blueprint of oil pipelines. A private security memo. Confidential emails between Victor Kane and the Ministry of Resources. Holy! Sarah pointed. He's pushing a secret plan to dig under Nduri. Oil fields. Untapped. But the land is sacred. Tribal land protected under heritage law. And the kids? Nathan asked. Sarah's face darkened. Distractions. Leverage. They disappear. The villagers panic. The elders beg for help. The government steps in, offers security. Meanwhile, Kane starts drilling. Nathan's heart pounded. He's starting a war. Sarah pulled up a satellite image. There's already movement. Trucks. Gear. Security forces. They're hiding behind humanitarian aid teams. Nathan clenched his fists. We have to release this. Now. Sarah looked at him. It's not that easy. You can't just drop this on the news. Kane owns 2 of the biggest media houses. They'll bury it. Nathan thought for a moment, then nodded. Then we leak it, anonymously, through every underground channel, every activist page, every tribal council. We flood the system. Sarah smirked. Now you're talking. She began copying files onto a hard drive. Nathan stared out the window. The city lights sparkled, hiding the shadows underneath. Somewhere out there, Kane was making deals, moving pieces, thinking he was untouchable. But Nathan had a fire in his chest now, and a voice in his head, Grace's voice, reminding him of the path they had chosen. You're not alone, city man, she had said, and he believed her. Later that night, Nathan sat alone on the balcony, the hard drive in his hand. Behind him, Sarah was still working. uploading data, scheduling time releases, masking their IP. His phone buzzed. A message. No number. Just one line. You're being watched. He looked up sharply. A black car was parked across the street. The war had begun. Dark hall echoed with the slow, heavy steps of armored boots. At the far end, a man in a crimson robe sat on a carved wooden throne. King Oswald, ruler of the Underground Elite Council, tapped his ringed fingers on the throne's armrest. His eyes, sharp and full of warning, were fixed on a flame dancing in the bowl before him. A guard entered and knelt. "My king, the seer has awakened." Oswald raised an eyebrow. "Grace." "Yes, your majesty." "She has joined with a man from the city, Nathan Blake." The king's jaw tightened. They were seen at Elder Jonah's path. There's no doubt the prophecy had begun to move. Oswald stood slowly, his tall frame casting a shadow over the flame. His voice, low and dangerous, carried weight. "I buried that prophecy in blood, locked it away with silence. If it spreads again, the people will remember." He walked over to a tall window, looking out across the Capitol. Skyscrapers cut into the skyline, but Oswald didn't see steel and glass. He saw threats. Memory. Uprising. "Send my best warriors," he ordered. "Not soldiers. Ghosts. Hunters." The guard nodded. "Understood." "And one more thing," Oswald added, his voice turning to a cold whisper. "If Grace reaches a shrine, burn it. Burn everything." Back in the forest, Grace and Nathan moved quickly along a path hidden beneath thick trees. The air was heavy, humming with energy. Birds scattered as they passed. "We don't have much time," Grace said, her voice sharp. Nathan glanced at her. "What happened?" "I felt something last night," she replied. "A disturbance in the flame. King Oswald knows we're together." Nathan sighed. "Of course he does. The man has eyes everywhere." She nodded. "And now he'll send his worst. Not soldiers in uniform. These ones wear silence. The old warriors. The ones born in blood." As they reached a high cliff, Grace paused and looked back. Nathan followed her gaze. "What is it?" She shook her head. "The forest is breathing faster." Before he could speak, a sudden whoosh of air passed him, and a spear buried itself in the tree beside Nathan's head. "Get down!" Grace shouted. They dove for cover as three masked warriors dropped from the trees, faces painted black, moving like shadows. Nathan scrambled behind a rock, heart pounding. One of the warriors charged Grace, blade drawn. She spun, ducked, and slammed a handful of powder into his face. A flash of white smoke exploded. The warrior stumbled back, blinded. Nathan saw another attacker coming toward him. With no weapon, he grabbed a branch and swung wildly, catching the man in the ribs. But the third one moved in, silent, fast, and struck Nathan across the shoulder. He fell back, dazed. "Grace!" he shouted. She turned, saw him bleeding, and unleashed a high-pitched chant. The earth beneath them trembled. The warriors froze, confused. Then the ground cracked open just enough to trip them. Roots surged from the dirt, wrapping around their legs. Nathan stared in disbelief. "What was that?" Grace pulled him to his feet. "A warning. The land protects us for now." They ran. As they disappeared into the trees, one of the trapped warriors pulled free and touched a stone on his belt. It glowed red. A message sent. The next morning, the sun filtered gently through the leaves as Grace and Nathan approached a small clearing deep in the sacred forest. In the center stood a round hut built from bark and woven vines. Smoke drifted lazily from the top. A man with silver-white hair sat outside, carving something into a long stick. His skin was weathered, but his eyes burned bright with wisdom. "Elder Jonah," Grace called softly. He looked up and smiled. "Ah, the girl of flame and the man of change. You found each other." Nathan blinked. "You know us." "I've known you for many lives," Jonah said calmly, rising to his feet. "Come, the ancestors are waiting." Inside the hut, the walls were covered in old drawings, circles, stars, twin figures, crumbling mountains. At the center of the floor was a shallow pit, filled with glowing coals and white ash. Jonah motioned for them to sit. "I dreamed of this day," he began. "Every 300 years, the earth resets. Two souls rise. One carries light, vision. The other, action, courage." Grace looked at Nathan, then at Jonah. "And what happened last time?" Jonah's eyes dimmed. "They failed." Silence. Nathan leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "The last two, she saw too much. He acted too soon. They were not in rhythm. And so, the kingdom was destroyed. Fire rained from the sky. Rivers turned red. Entire clans vanished." Grace spoke quietly. "And now it begins again." Jonah nodded. "The land remembers. The spirits have waited. Nathan, you are the spark. But sparks can light a fire or burn the world." Nathan swallowed. "And Grace? She is the one who listens when the ancestors whisper. But she must not carry the burden alone. If you stray, she loses her way. And if she doubts, you lose your fire." Grace looked down. "We're already being hunted." "Yes," Jonah said, "because your connection is dangerous. It brings truth. And truth breaks the chains that power men like Oswald." Nathan shifted. "So what do we do now?" Jonah stood and went to a small box near the coals. He opened it and pulled out a curved wooden pendant, carved with twin flames. This was worn by the last pair. "It holds a mark of balance. It must be burned into your skin." Nathan frowned. "Wait, what?" Grace nodded solemnly. "It's a symbol, a bond." Jonah looked at them both. "You must carry each other in body and spirit. This mark ensures your paths cannot be separated by magic or fear or time." Nathan took a deep breath. "Let's do it." Jonah held the pendant over the coals until it glowed orange. Then he pressed it to Grace's wrist. She winced but did not cry out. Then he turned to Nathan. "You sure?" Nathan nodded. "Do it." The searing pain was sharp but brief. The smell of burned wood and skin filled the air. When it was over, the matching marks glowed faintly on both of them, like twin suns etched in flesh. Jonah exhaled. "Now, no matter what happens, your souls are tied." Grace stood. "Thank you, Elder." Jonah nodded. "The next step is a shrine of roots. There, the past and future can be seen in full." Nathan asked, "And if we don't make it?" Jonah's eyes turned sad. "Then the kingdom will fall again. But this time, there may not be another 300 years. Outside, a shadow passed through the trees. Far away, in a stone tower, King Oswald stared at a burning map. The war was coming. And now, both sides were awake. The sun was high over Doma. Journalists, tribal leaders, and foreign diplomats gathered in the city square, where a stage had been built. Cameras flashed. Flags waved. On the banners above, the words, "Unity Agreement." A new future for Zariba were written in gold. Victor Kane stood at the podium, smiling like a king. Nathan watched from the back of the crowd, his fists clenched. He leaned toward Sarah beside him. "This is all fake," he whispered. "He's setting a trap." Sarah checked her phone, scanning encrypted messages from tribal contacts. "I don't see Grace. Are you sure she agreed to this meeting?" Nathan nodded. "She told me last night. She was going to speak on behalf of the forest tribes." She trusted him. Victor Kane raised his hands to silence the crowd. "Today, we prove that the old wounds of our land can be healed. We sign peace, we promise growth, and we bring everyone into the future." Applause echoed across the square. Suddenly, a side gate opened, and Grace appeared. She was dressed in a ceremonial white robe, her wrists bare, her eyes calm but watchful. Two guards walked beside her, smiling politely for the cameras. Nathan's heart sank. "She didn't come alone," he muttered. "She's surrounded." Grace stepped onto the stage. Kane turned to her. "Seer of Nduri, do you bring the blessing of the old ways?" Grace looked over the crowd, then spoke clearly. "I bring the truth of the land, not your version of peace." The crowd murmured. Cameras zoomed in. Victor chuckled, placing a hand gently on her back. "Let's discuss it inside." Before anyone could react, he signaled his men. A sudden blast of white smoke burst from under the stage, blinding everyone. Screams rang out. When the smoke cleared, Grace was gone. Sarah grabbed Nathan's arm. They took her. Nathan was already running, pushing through the crowd, pulling up his hood to stay hidden. We have to find her now. Hours later, in a dark room inside Kane's private estate, Grace sat tied to a chair. Her robe had been replaced with a plain black tunic. Her face was bruised, but her spirit unshaken. Victor Kane stood before her, sipping wine. "You should have played your role," he said. "Stand beside me. Give your little speech. Smile for the cameras. You'd be treated like a queen." Grace looked him dead in the eye. "I'm not here for a throne." He leaned in. "But you could be." She shook her head slowly. "You think you can rewrite the prophecy, don't you? Take the pieces and twist them into your story." Victor smiled. "Exactly." He walked over to a large screen and pressed a button. Images appeared: oil wells, construction blueprints, satellite views of Nduri. "We're already drilling," he said. "Within weeks, the land will bleed riches." Grace turned away. Victor added quietly, "And the people will have no idea what they've lost. But if you stand with me, if you tell them I am chosen, we win together." She didn't respond. Victor sighed and snapped his fingers. 2 guards entered. "Take her to the lower floor. She'll think better in the dark." Meanwhile, Nathan and Sarah sat inside a dimly lit garage beneath a mechanic's workshop. On the table before them were blueprints of Kane's estate, security footage, and access codes gathered from Sarah's underground network. "It's a fortress," Sarah said. "Private guards, motion sensors, cameras everywhere." Nathan stared at the map. "I don't care. I'm going in." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "That place is a suicide mission." "She saved me," he said. "Now it's my turn." Sarah slid a USB drive across the table. "This will disable the outer cameras for 7 minutes. After that, you're blind. 7 minutes is enough." She handed him a black hoodie, gloves, and a small knife. Nathan took a deep breath. Time to bring her home. That night, under a moonless sky, Nathan moved like a shadow across the back wall of Kane's estate. He plugged Sarah's device into the main security box and waited for the green light. It flashed. 7 minutes. He climbed the wall, rolled silently across the grass, and ducked behind a row of trimmed bushes. He slipped past 2 guards chatting near the side door and found the vent Sarah marked on the map. Inside, he crawled to the narrow duct until he reached the east hallway. He dropped down quietly and landed in silence. Then he heard her, a faint whisper through the concrete. "Nathan." He followed the voice down the steps into the basement. And there she was, Grace, still strong, still glowing in the darkness. "Nathan," she whispered in disbelief. He rushed over and cut her ropes. "I told you I'd come." She grabbed his hand. "They'll be back any second." Footsteps echoed above. Nathan looked up. Too late. As Grace and Nathan moved through the basement halls, an alarm suddenly blared. "Intruder in lower levels. Seal all exits." Guard began flooding the estate. Grace stopped running and pulled Nathan into a shadow corner. Her breathing was calm, too calm. "I have to stay," she said. "What?" Nathan grabbed her arm. "No, we're leaving now." "I saw this," she whispered, "in a dream. If we both try to escape now, you'll die, and everything will end." He shook his head. "No, Grace. We make our own future. Together." She stepped closer. "I'm not leaving you, Nathan, but I have to hold them off. Buy you time." "No, there has to be another way." Just then, a loud clanging door opened above them. Kane's voice rang down. "Give her to me, Nathan. Walk away and I let you live." Nathan turned to Grace. "Please don't do this." She touched his cheek, eyes full of light. "Remember the flame. We are still connected." Then she turned and ran toward the guards. "No!" Nathan shouted. He wanted to chase her, but he heard Sarah's voice in his earpiece. "Nathan, you need to move now. I'm guiding you to the exit." He hesitated, then turned and ran the other way. Grace reached the central stairwell just as a guard stormed in. Victor stepped out behind them, clapping slowly. "You chose wrong," he said. "You could have been a legend." Grace raised her chin. "I already am." The room began to tremble. The lights flickered. Grace closed her eyes and chanted. A burst of fire erupted around her, blocking the guards. Some screamed. Others fell back. Victor watched in disbelief. And then, as she collapsed to her knees, the fire slowly died. Nathan burst through the back gate just as police sirens roared in the distance. Sarah was waiting in the car. "Where's Grace?" she asked. Nathan said nothing. His eyes stared ahead, heartbroken. The full moon rose above the valley of Nduri. Fires crackled in a wide circle. Hundreds gathered for Festival of the Roots, an ancient celebration meant to honor the spirits of the land. Dancers moved in rhythm, their feet kicking up dust, drums echoing to the night like thunder in the bones. But tonight, something felt different. The earth was tense, like it was listening. Nathan walked quietly through the crowd, a dark cloak around his shoulders. Sarah walked beside him, scanning the faces. "Are you sure she'll be here?" Sarah asked. Nathan nodded slowly. "She has to be." Just then, a hush fell over the crowd. An old tribal chief stood at the fire's edge, raising a wooden staff. "The land remembers," he declared. "The fire has spoken. Tonight, the prophecy comes to pass." From the trees behind him, a figure stepped into the firelight. It was Grace. Gasps filled the air. Her white ceremonial robe glowed under the moon. Her arms were marked with twin flame symbols, and her hair hung wild over her shoulders. She looked stronger. Still, sacred. Nathan's heart raced. Their eyes met across the fire. She gave a small, knowing smile. But before anyone could speak, the ground trembled. Boom! The drums stopped. Boom! Boom! The mountain behind the village let out a deep groan, like something waking from centuries of sleep. Then, crack! A giant fissure tore through the earth near the stage. Red light glowed beneath it. Screams broke out. The fire exploded upward like a pillar. From the cracks, spirits rose. They weren't human. Not anymore. Shimmering silhouettes of ancestors, warriors, mothers, hunters, floated into the air, whispering ancient truths. The crowd dropped to their knees in awe and fear. Sarah whispered, "Is this supposed to happen?" "No," Grace said, walking slowly toward the fire. "This means the land is choosing." Suddenly, an engine roared. A military truck screeched to a stop just outside the circle. Soldiers jumped out, rifles raised. Behind them, a black car pulled up. King Oswald stepped out, and beside him, Victor Kane, wearing ceremonial armor. King Oswald raised his voice. "Stand down. This gathering is illegal. The prophecy ends tonight." One of the elders stood in defiance. "You cannot stop the spirits." But Kane didn't hesitate. He fired a warning shot into the sky. "Anyone who supports the prophecy is a traitor," he shouted. "And traitors burn." Nathan moved toward Grace. She reached for his hand. Together, they stood at the edge of the flame. The crowd looked between the soldiers and the spirits. Some began to chant. Others started running. The ground trembled again. Then, a voice echoed above them all. It wasn't loud, but it was everywhere. Balance must be restored. Everyone froze. Grace stepped forward. Her eyes had turned silver. She spoke with a voice not fully her own. "This is a fire of choice. You either burn in the lie or rise in truth." Oswald raised his hand. "Shoot them." But when the soldiers tried to fire, the earth beneath them shook violently, and their weapons were yanked from their hands by unseen force. The spirits surrounded the fire, forming a wall of light. Kane screamed, "Do something." He rushed forward with a blade, aimed at Nathan. Grace moved first. She raised her hand, and the fire bent toward her, wrapping around her body, shielding her like armor. Kane tried to slash, but the flames threw him back. Oswald began to retreat, but found himself face to face with one of the spirits, an old queen with eyes like smoke and lightning. "You silenced us for too long," she whispered. Oswald dropped to his knees. The mountain roared again. Then everything went white. When the light faded, the dust began to settle. People slowly opened their eyes. The fire was still burning, but calmer now. The spirits had vanished, leaving only wind and ash behind. Victor Kane lay unconscious near the edge of the stage. Oswald was gone. No one knew how. Grace stood in the center, her robes now blackened at the hem. She looked peaceful, but her energy was fading. Nathan rushed to her. "Grace!" He caught her just as she stumbled. She smiled weakly. "You made it!" "You saved everyone," he said. "No," she replied. "We did." He held her close. "It's over now. You can rest." But she shook her head. "Not yet." She looked around at the people gathering. Their faces were full of awe and questions. She turned to Nathan, placing something in his hand. A small stone, smooth and warm. "This holds the truth. All of it." He looked down. "What do you mean?" "You have to tell them. Tell the world. What really happened here. What the land remembers." "What about you?" She stepped back, slowly fading into the mist that rolled in from the forest. "I have to return to the roots," she said. "The ancestors are calling me home." Nathan tried to follow, but the mist swallowed her. She was gone. 1 year later, a screen lit up. A video played. Nathan Blake standing in front of a large university auditorium. "My name is Nathan Blake," he said. "And this is the story of the land that speaks." He clicked a remote. Images flashed of Grace, of the tribal fires, of the spirits. The audience sat in silence, some wiping tears. Nathan continued. "Many will say what happened in Zariba was a miracle. Others will say it was madness. But the truth is we change our fate, not through violence, not through power, but through balance." He held up the stone Grace had given him. It pulsed faintly. "I met someone who could see the future, and I was someone who could change it." He smiled softly. "She called us the both of us, and together we rewrote the story." The screen faded to black. In the forest of Nduri, somewhere deep beneath the ancient trees, a flicker of flame danced quietly in the wind. Grace, dressed in simple robes, knelt before a shrine. She whispered to the earth, "May the next ones rise when the time is right." The wind carried her words through the roots and soil. Balance restored.